EVs have failed, and these automakers are screaming at pops. General Motors just repurposed one of their plants that they had specifically invested in to produce electric vehicles, and instead, they're going to be making more trucks and SUVs that have internal combustion engines. We have Ram bringing back the HEMI engine. You've got the SRT lineup over at Dodge, going back to performance roots and internal combustion engines. And you've got delays for EVs that manufacturers have said they were going to produce and bring to market that they're no longer doing. Let's talk about this full circle moment in the auto industry. Let's start with GM. What is going on there and why is it so significant?
Well, GM, like every other major brand, invested a poop ton of money into EVs because they were convinced that that was the future for the industry. And as it turns out, maybe not so much here in North America. A facility that they had earmarked to produce nothing but EVs is going to be retrofitted again and is going to be producing nothing but internal combustion engine vehicles. Pickup trucks, the Cadillac Escalade, Silverado, Sierra, those are all vehicles that are going to remain gas-powered vehicles moving forward. That's not to say that the future might not hold some EVs, but to that degree, it is changing dramatically.
Yeah.
It is. Let's go back to our roots, ladies and gentlemen.
A $4 billion investment, and they're switching gears on what they're producing there. That's a big, big deal. And they said it's because of strong consumer demand for internal combustion engine vehicles, not their electric vehicles. And we should note here that consumer demand for new cars is generally going down right now in the summertime because they're so expensive. And EVs, we know, are more expensive than internal combustion engine vehicles. So GM making this big pivot in this big switch. Let's talk about Stellantis, another one of these automakers that on the Dodge side, they're going back with the SRT roots, which is their street race technology or something like that. And they're really, really pushing on these performance vehicles that are big horsepower, big loud noises. This is a total reversal for that brand because they had brought out, the Daytona, the Dodge Daytona Charger, which was the EV, which was not selling, has not sold, and then ultimately has been paused from a production standpoint. So they're doing a total 180, and then layer in Ram, Tim Kuniskis bringing back the V8 HEMI engine. They're doing a total 180 over there as well. And we haven't even touched on Ford yet, and there's EV struggles.
This is the perfect example of manufacturers actually listening to what it is that their customers want, as opposed to telling their customers what they want. Customers dropped out of the market rather than buy EVs. Now, that's not to say that EV sales didn't grow. They did. They haven't grown at the rate that was expected. They've actually declined in some cases. And a lot of these manufacturers who had invested billions of dollars into EVs are realizing that what their customers really wanted were high-powered gas engine vehicles. And the beauty of this for the manufacturers is those internal combustion engine vehicles are cheaper for them to produce than the EVs. In many cases, these manufacturers were actually losing money on every electric vehicle that they sold. Going back to their roots, going back to internal combustion engine vehicles allows them to recoup the losses that they had on those EV sales. It says to me that at least here in North America, we are not going to hit a 30% or 40% or 50% of all vehicle sales as EVs by 2030. That number will probably be 20%.
Yeah.
Because the public doesn't, they voted with their pocketbook. They don't want them.
And ultimately, Dad, one of the things that has changed materially now, or will go into effect in September, you no longer have a federal government that is subsidizing the purchase of these vehicles. There's massive incentives from these manufacturers to move the metal, the vehicles they've already produced.
Yes.
Incentives. But subsidies from the government are going away in September. And so we will see an uptick in people purchasing these vehicles before the federal tax credit goes away. But after that, it's doom and gloom for electric vehicles in the United States, as far as I can tell. Now, this is a blanket statement against legacy automotive. Those upstart companies, I think we put in a slightly different bucket here. Tesla and Rivian and Lucid, companies like that. That being said, these legacy automakers who pivoted their whole business model in this direction and have lost billions of dollars as a result. I'm looking at Nissan, who invested heavily in the Aria, for example, which has not sold particularly well. And that brand has lost $5 billion in their most recent year. You've got Volkswagen absolutely has invested heavily in electric vehicles, and the ID4 is one of the slowest selling cars in the United States. The Audi Q4 e-tron is in the top 5 slowest selling cars as well right now in the United States. So another example there. You got Volvo. They went and they did a whole big pivot towards Polestar. We're going to push towards Polestar. It's going to be a new sales model. It's going to be EVs. Ford did this a little bit as well with their Model Blue. All these businesses struggling mightily. And then you have the creme de la creme, Jaguar, who's taken the year off to go from all internal combustion engine vehicles fully over to all EV vehicles. That brand might not even exist anymore in North America on the other side of this if they don't wake up and pivot what they've previously done.
It is hard to imagine how many companies had committed so much money.
Hundreds of billions.
Yes, maybe even $1 trillion.
Yeah.
To move towards full battery electric vehicles and saw that as their future when their customers did not agree. It was as if the manufacturer said, we know better than you, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, as to what it is that you want. And in reality, never underestimate what your customer is telling you. If your customer is telling you, I want X, well, don't just offer them Y. Perhaps you should build X and let them buy X.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Twitter.
So it is an interesting moment in time, Dad. We're seeing these manufacturers in real time pivot their strategies that have multi-billion-dollar implications. And you can read clearly what's going on here. It's a pivot away from electric vehicles and a pivot back towards internal combustion engine vehicles. To your point earlier, hopefully this allows them to drive down some of the price points. I also, my fingers are crossed, hopefully it gets rid of some of these recalls and quality concern issues as well. You're using parts that you've used for a long, long time now. And really, we should see a swing back to hopefully more consumer demand, lower price points, and more car sales. Because obviously what was happening on the electric vehicle side, the average transaction prices were just so much higher than the other powertrains. And we obviously know that hybrid powertrains are the ones that people are really gravitating towards. Look at Toyota lots. They don't have a lot of inventory on them. Lexus lots, they don't have a lot of inventory on them for that very reason. Those hybrid powertrains are what folks are choosing. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to continue to watch, but I'm calling it right now here on the CarEdge channel. This is a full circle moment. EVs North America after September, the market is significantly different than it was before.
Yeah, the market for EVs will be significantly lower, and the market for internal combustion engine vehicles will grow rapidly.
Seems that way. All right, Pops, well, thanks for sharing your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you.